Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you'll meet a man who is predicting a new era for the Democratic Party in Texas. He is Kendall Scudder. He's the Texas Democratic chairman. His journey next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, when I think about the heyday of the Democratic Party in Texas, I think about the LBJ years. I, of course, think about the Ann Richards years. But, you know, it's been a couple decades of challenges for the Democratic Party facing a largely conservative state. Somebody who's out to change that narrative is in the studio right now, Kendall Scudder. He is the Democratic chairman for the Texas Party. Thank you for coming on the show.
Just happy to be here. I'm starting week number 3 today. So I officially know where the bathrooms are, and we're just trying to hit the ground running.
Well, you and I go back a long time because you had a very popular podcast on our network a few years ago, and I remember you were the co-host, and there was a time when President Biden was going to come in and be on your show, which really reaffirmed to me the power of podcasting.
Yeah, well, we've come so far, Jeff. Look at us now. Look at us.
Look at you.
No, I mean, we absolutely love doing that show here. It was just so much fun. My co-host got appointed to the Biden administration, and so that kind of slowed our roll a little bit.
Sure.
But we just really loved it, and the last 4 years have given me an opportunity to kind of focus in on some of the party work we're doing, and then on March 29th, I was elected as the new chairman. So
wow.
I like to think it all started with you, Jeff.
Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. You have loads of talent, and you beat a crowded field. How many people did you beat?
I won in the first ballot round in a 7-way race.
Wow, incredible.
Doesn't happen a lot. I think the reason that it happened is because folks right now are ready for something different. I mean, you see that a lot, even on the Republican side, where, you know, a lot of people may not love Donald Trump, but they wanted something different to kind of disrupt the system. I'm not a guy that's from the political apparatus. I grew up on a pea farm in East Texas. You know, my granddaddy used to have to share a pair of boots with his brothers. Like, I don't come from a lot. And after the last election, a lot of people acknowledge that the Democrats really need to recalibrate the way they're messaging. And I haven't heard a voice from the perspective of mine leading our party in a long time. I think a lot of folks in party leadership were ready to see that message really take the helm here at the party.
We're going to scroll down your website because it's a beautifully made website, and let's talk about some of the values that you stand for as we scroll down the website. What are things that you're passionate about?
Look, I started doing politics when I was 12 years old. You don't see people who do that very often. It was because Republicans were writing bills to take kids with same-sex parents out of our homes and put us in foster care. I was laying low-hanging fruit for Republicans, but they chose to come after my family and our way of life. And so as a result, you kind of get thrust into politics in a world like that. So for the last 23 years, I've been on every level of party leadership, fighting back. And like I said, I'm the kind of guy who had to wait tables and work at a Dairy Queen to put myself through a poor boys college. You know, I didn't go to some Ivy League fancy school. I went to Sam Houston State, which might as well have been Harvard for a kid like me. Wow. And so, you know, from my perspective, and the reason people in my family and my area are Democrats is because we work for a living. Democrats foundationally were a party that looked out for the working man. We fought for unions, fair wages, fair benefits, making sure that the little guy wasn't getting trampled on by big corporate interests and billionaires. And over the years, particularly since Donald Trump's election in 2016, the party became this entity trying to protect institutions. Those institutions haven't worked for working people, so we started losing them. They didn't want to stand up and fight for people that were protecting a status quo. Wealth inequality is outrageous in Texas. There's 66 billionaires that control more wealth than 70% of this state, 25,400,000 people. Wow. So who is standing on the front lines fighting? If I can't tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican, how can a voter? Our brand has to become synonymous with economic justice, fighting for the little guy and fighting for working folks. And that's kind of what I anticipate doing. Every day we get out of bed, we're going to fight to say, what can this party do to make life easier for people who are struggling right now? That's the only thing that matters.
And you have been very busy in the last 3 weeks doing countless interviews. I found one with Jack Fink on CBS 11. Let's roll a clip from that.
Kendall Scudder, new chairman of the Texas Democratic Party. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So let's start with the big question. How do Democrats respond after the November losses? What's your prescription?
Look, it's a new day for the Texas Democratic Party, and we can either argue with people and tell them that they were wrong when they chose to stay home and not vote for us, or we can look in the mirror and make some adjustments and try to move forward and re-earn some trust of folks, and that's what I intend to do. So we're going to build a grassroots apparatus all across this state. There are 40 mid-sized cities in this state that have over 100,000 people in them, and we as Democrats have not been there and we've not been present. And so we're going to change that. So from Amarillo to Brownsville, from El Paso to Texarkana, we're going to be all across this state building a network and making sure that people understand that the Democratic Party is the party that's fighting for working folks.
So let me ask you about what you said before about people staying home. Why do you think that is? And does the fact that perhaps messaging was off?
I think that the reason that those folks stayed home is because they don't always see a Democratic Party that's throwing down and fighting for them. And even if you don't have the levers of power, you should get caught trying. A lot of times Democrats try a little bit too hard to be middle of the road and try to be consensus builders. But the reality is that's just not where the electorate is anymore. They want to see elected officials across this state that are throwing down and fighting for their families.
Does the party need more young blood? Like, I think about JFK. I mean, he was leading a movement. Beto was leading a movement. What do you think the party needs?
Well, as the new 35-year-old chair of the party, I'll say yes, absolutely. We need more young blood. Look, politics is about addition, not subtraction. We need to add as many people as we can from as many different walks of life. As long as you're willing to respect all the people sitting at our table, we want to have you here, right? That being said, it sure would be great if our party or our electeds would open up some more space to let young people come in. And by young people, remember, I'm not talking about children. I'm old enough to be president of the United States, and right now I'm a commodity. Everybody's shocked that there's a millennial chair, the only one in the country. There's a Gen Z or younger than me, but they aren't in a state the size of Texas. And so it's troubling to me that our society has become such that a 35-year-old is considered a child. That's the state of government these days. We've got to start putting people who are in this process of trying to buy homes, in the process of trying to start families, in the process of trying to start their careers and start businesses. You know, when you're in your late 20s and 30s and early 40s, that's kind of what that era of your life is. Sure. And it's completely missing from public discourse right now. We don't have parents sitting at the table when they're talking about voucher programs that would unilaterally defund public schools to give entitlement programs to rich folks. Well, if a bunch of folks who had school-age kids were in the legislature, they would probably take a lot more interest and a lot more issue with the fact that they're trying to defund those schools that their kids are in. Yes. So there's an issue when you don't have diversity of thought. And a lot of times when we say diversity, people think that means ethnic diversity or religious diversity. And those are certainly items that we should have that diversity of thought there. But I think diversity of age is important too. Young people don't need every seat at the table, but it sure would be great if young people had a couple.
You're a very dynamic speaker. I saw some video on YouTube. Let's just go ahead and roll this. I think you were speaking in Denton County. Who were you speaking to?
That was a group called Denton Together. They're an organization that works for nonpartisan municipal races, municipals and school boards, to try to get people that are interested in good government elected. You know, they don't necessarily side with Democrats or Republicans. What I really like about them is that they are an organization that basically says, like, how is it controversial to want a school board member who wants to protect public schools? How is it controversial to have a city council member that wants local control and doesn't want Austin to tell everybody what to do all the time?
Yeah.
And so they work to try to just get regular people elected. As a regular folk, I tend to like that.
Do you think the party needs to pick issues that people are more passionate about? Because, I mean, look at you. You're not even drawing a paycheck. This is a volunteer position
Correct.
for you. So that kind of passion, people want to think about how they're going to pay their light bill.
Yep.
What is the family thinking about?
To me, everybody is struggling. Life is hard. Even if you are a person of means, you are not doing as well right now as you were. Okay? I mean, there's a level of uncertainty right now economically. Donald Trump just passed the largest tax increase on middle-class families in my lifetime with these tariffs. And the stock market is in free fall before it's not in free fall, before it's back in free fall. What people want right now is stability and certainty, and to know that they can plan for retirement, that retirement will be there. If you pay into Social Security, you know that Social Security will be there. If you go to college and you get a degree, you know there's going to be a job there waiting for you.
Sure.
This agency over themselves and their life, like, that's what people are wanting. So for me, I'm focusing on how do we get that American dream back? My generation, a lot of people, it doesn't even occur to them that they could buy a home. That's not even in the cards. My wife and I bought our first home 2 years ago. Only way that we were able to afford that was the student loan pause that happened during COVID. We were able to save up enough money to be able to put down a down payment on our home. We're both master's educated professionals who couldn't afford to be in a home if they hadn't paused our student loan payments. Wow. So how do we make life created in a way that American dream that my grandparents had, and for some portion of my parents had, how do we make sure that millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Alpha are able to have that? My wife is pregnant. She's going to have our first kid in July. We're going to have a son. And I don't know that I could look at him and tell him that his life's going to be better than mine, because it's so uncertain. So you can't afford a home because your interest rates, or you can't afford your rent, first of all, that you have to pay because you can't afford a home, that you aren't able to buy because you can't afford the interest rates. And even if you did, you couldn't afford the insurance rates on those homes because they're through the roof. No one's focused on how to get your costs down, how to make life easier for you. They're all arguing process. They're all arguing about who gets to be, king of this loser pile, and we're all the losers sitting in that pile, Sure. It's not about us anymore. It's all about them and their chessboard that they're moving around. We aren't chess pieces. We're human beings. We are citizens. And frankly, we have the most powerful position in this democracy if we choose to use it. That's, to me, the message that the party has to focus on. When you elect Texas Democrats, you're going to get lower taxes for middle-class families, you're going to get better funded schools, and you're going to have safer streets.
Wow. I'm sure that you heard naysayers along the way when you told everybody you were running. Why would you do this? This is David versus Goliath. Of course, David won that battle.
Isn't it wild?
Yeah. So in the final 2 minutes, this is your closing pitch to the audience. What does the party need right now, and how can people who want to come alongside you support you?
To me, what the party needs to do is stop arguing with people when we tell you that you didn't want to support us. There are 1.1 million Democrats in Texas that voted for us in 2020, didn't vote for us in 24. I'm not going to sit here and tell you why you're wrong. I'm going to listen to you and say, heard. Let's see what we can do to make that better. When I'm going around the state, what I hear people say is they're sick and tired of hearing Democrats give them lip service and not deliver. And when things are important, they negotiate away the things that are important, like the minimum wage increase and protecting collective bargaining rights. The reason these Republicans are trying to shut down your community schools is because their donors and owners, these billionaires in the White House and in West Texas, they want to keep your kid uneducated so that they can keep their wages low. then your kid can't go to college, or your kid will get stuck on a farm or stuck on an assembly line, stuck in a factory, and then they don't have to pay them the benefits and the wages that they need to make their lives better. We're here to fight for the little guy and create a system where you vote for a Democrat so you can live like a Republican. And so that to me is the message as we move forward. We hope to be able to earn people back. It's a new day in the Texas Democratic Party. I hope that we can earn your trust.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision with us. And we're going to end with his website so you can get in touch with him, kendallscudder.com. Kendall, thanks for coming on the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.